Hello everyone, my name is Colin and you are watching ClassyHerps. Alright, so I've had a lot of requests to do a care video on how to care for these poison dart frogs here. So, before I even get started, I'm going to say this is how I care for mine. I've been doing this for 2.5 years. I've had these exact frogs and they've all lived and they're all healthy and they're doing great. So this is how I care for my dart frogs. Alright, now first off I'm going to start off by saying that these guys aren't the easiest frog to take care of, but they aren't nearly as hard as a lot of people make them out to be. Like, they make them sound like they're something nearly impossible to keep alive, and really they're not if you have the right equipment and everything. So I'm going to tell you what you need to have today. Alright, now the first thing I'm going to do is get rid of the myth that these guys are poisonous, as their name implies. In the wild, yes, they are poisonous and they can kill you if you touch them, but they are poisonous in the wild because of the insects that they eat. They digest them in a proper way that it would make chemicals in their body. They're poisonous in the wild, so that's why they look like this, to warn off predators that if you touch them they will kill you. But don't feed them those insects in captivity, like I don't, and I don't even know what they eat in the wild that makes them like that. But if you don't, then they are not poisonous and they're completely harmless to touch, but to them they are harmful if you touch them because their skin is extremely sensitive, and all the oils and salts on your skin and everything, it can kill them or really harm them if you touch them. Like, hold them, so don't hold them. The only time you really need to touch them is if they're trying to jump out of the cage, and you just have to nudge them back. That's the only time I would ever touch them. First off, you're going to need a tank, kind of big. I mean, it really depends on how many frogs you're planning on have, but I've got a decent sized cage here. It's glass on all sides and everything, and so that's pretty important because these are a very visual animal and you're going to want to see them, so you're going to want clear sides and everything. Alright, these frogs are diurnal, which means they're awake at daytime instead of, like, a lot of frogs are nocturnal. A lot of animals that we keep are nocturnal, which means they're awake at nighttime, so they sleep during the time that we're awake, so we don't get to see them much. But these frogs are really awesome to keep because they're awake when we're awake, so they're jumping around, and they sleep when we're asleep because they go and hide at nighttime. So they're a really awesome animal to display like that because they are awake when we're awake. Alright, these guys are from the jungle in South America, Amazon jungle, everything, so it's really humid there and pretty warm. So these guys need constant 80 to 100% humidity 24/7 constantly. So they need 80 to 100% humidity, and the temperatures need to be at least 75 degrees, right about 75 degrees. You don't want it much warmer than that or much cooler, but right about 75 degrees. So a little warmer than room temperature, but a nice heat mat on the side. Don't put heat mats on the bottom because you have so much down here that there's really no way a heat mat can heat through all of that. And plus your bulbs up here, which you need UVB bulbs. They do need UVB because they are diurnal, so they will die if you don't have like nice UVB bulbs up there. So they need those to stay alive, and those give off a little heat, probably just enough to keep things warm in here for them to be comfortable. Remember that UVB bulbs need to be placed yearly as they lose their give off of UVB. These guys eat a lot of tiny insects. I mainly feed fruit flies, but you can feed little beetles and springtails, and there's just a lot of tiny bugs that are smaller than ants, but they're small frogs, really small frogs. These are adult frogs, so they're pretty small frogs, like no bigger than your thumb, so they need small food. Like these fruit flies, I raise them on my own, and I can show you how to do that in a separate video if you guys need to request it, and I'll show you how to make culture fruit flies. As I'm eating the little fruit flies, I say the general number of fruit flies you need per day. A frog like this needs to eat about 10 to 20 fruit flies a day to be healthy, and so that's not too hard because fruit flies grow in thousands, so pretty easy to supply them with their food. I feed mine once a day. You can feed them twice a day, smaller feedings, but I feed mine one big old feeding once a day, so that just works out better for me. If you guys would notice, I have a few different subspecies of dart frogs all mixed together here. A lot of people say this is bad. I get a lot of hate comments about mixing species like this, but really they're all dendrobates and they're just subspecies, and you know, a lot of people say they are kind of territorial animals, but you don't want to get a ton in a cage like this. But you see, they're really small animals, and together in the jungle, it's not like they'd always be separated. They're going to come across each other in the jungle, and naturally. So, you know, I've had these guys for 2.5 years, all of them together. They've grown up from little tiny little, just changed over from tadpoles. I've raised them up, and they've all just done great together, you know. So it's fine to mix species, in my opinion. I mean, it's fine. They don't really fight. At least I've never seen a fight in my life, so they do fine together. I mean, you guys can think what you want about that. Some people prefer to just keep these Dendrobates azuris together, or just the Atoris, or, you know, you can just go with one species, or I mix species. I think it looks prettier, and, you know, it seems like it would just be a little more natural to have mixed species, because they're not going to be just in isolation in the wild. So as you can see, they're not very shy animals. They'll be right up against the glass and trying to jump out, so you gotta keep nudging them back. They like to climb. Some species like to climb more than others. These azuris tend to stay more on the ground level, and the others, a lot of other species like to climb, so you gotta have some height in the cage and some things to do. They're really curious animals, so you have a lot of things in the cage, a lot of live plants. Live plants are just almost necessary. They keep humidity in really well, and they break down all the waste and everything from the frogs, so live plants are pretty much necessary, and they're really easy to, I mean, they pretty much sustain themselves with all the humidity, the moisture, and the frogs waste as their fertilizer. Now, looking at their cage, what you need for a whole cage here, we'll start from the bottom. Underneath here, I've painted this black because it's not very pretty under here. I've just got layers of filters to keep there's a bunch of water under here, and there's layers, and there's little balls, and just a bunch of filters and everything down here. And also, if you notice, there's a little waterfall. If there's a little pump down there that runs up there. So you need to keep this down here, all this water, pretty filtered. And just having water underneath the bottom, it really helps the humidity, because it constantly keeps the soil and everything wet, which just pretty much supplies an unlimited supply of humidity. You see in their corner, I dug out a little bit of the dirt, so you can see I have like a wire mesh here to keep the dirt separated from the water underneath, and then there's these little clay balls, and then underneath that is a big egg crate kind of thing, and then underneath that is just straight water. So that's what I got down here. Now for substrate, I used a blend of a lot of things, mainly Eco Earth, a bunch of these little sticks that you can buy. Make sure they're not infested with bugs, of course, but you need to have a lot of little sticks in here. It really helps. Just have a mixture of soil, or you can just go with Eco Earth. I mean, it doesn't really matter. It just looks a lot better with there's some sticks and just a mixture thing. Now, if you notice, I have a bunch of logs in here that are built into this foam background that I built myself. You don't have to go this elaborate with a tank. It just makes it look really nice. I wanted this to be a real nice show tank. So the background is a great stuff foam that we just kind of molded, and we stuck some Eco Earth to, so it looks like a dirt wall. And then we kind of just stuck logs into it. You see the waterfall right here. It runs down onto this log, kind of curves down right in the bottom there. It was really cool. Back here we have a big rock with this little coconut hide that they like to go into. And as you notice, my live plants, the main thing with live plants is you got to keep them trimmed down. They're due for a trimming. They grow extremely fast in these conditions. But the frogs love the live plants. It gives them stuff to hide in when they want to go hide. It gives them stuff to explore. You know, they love to explore. So you need to have a lot of little crevices and things for them to jump around into and look at, so they don't get bored. You know, just to keep them doing things. Now, how do you keep humidity? Well, there's a lot of ways to do it. I use this Mist King system. It's kind of an expensive system, but basically it does the job. It really does the job. It's this big pump right here, which goes down into this big tank here that you can fill with water, and then it plugs in, and through the tubes it goes up through the back behind, and out of these little bracket things in the top, these nozzles, and they just shoot mist. And it's a really nice system, and it keeps everything really wet. I have it on this timer right here, so it goes on for like 30 seconds every 2 hours or so, and it just keeps everything moistened down, and things never dry out. You just got to keep the reservoir filled. Hey guys, the biggest tip I could probably give you is buy timers. There's nothing more annoying than having to turn your lights on and off every day, or having to plug in that mister system and wait for it to do that, and you'd have to do that forever. So I mean, that would take so much time. The biggest tip I can give you is go buy these timers at Walmart, probably like $5, and you just plug them in, and you set what time you want your lights to come on. Your lights will turn themselves on and off, and your mister will turn itself on and off, and then the cage pretty much runs itself. The only thing you have to do is feed, and if you don't have enough time to feed, well, then you probably don't need the animals. I know how you can tell males and females apart. Males have a big toe pad right there on the front. That looks like a female to me, but I'm not really breeding them, so they're just here for, you know, decorations. But if you breed them, well, that's a whole other story. It's a whole other video, so I'm not going to get into that. It's not really too bad to mix males with females, you know, just as you raise them up from babies and they've known each other from babies, then it's not too big of a problem. Every now and then you will hear them chirping. It's not like an annoying frog chirp like you'd hear most frogs. It's like a song. It's a really pretty sound when they chirp. So it's kind of a rare thing, but it sounds really pretty, and it's quite a show for them when they start chirping. One last thing, you don't want a bunch of water in your tank because these guys can drown. The water bowl's not even necessary. I just have a tiny little shallow water bowl here just in case, maybe to lay some eggs in because they lay their eggs in water, but you don't want deep water because they will drown. You know, standing water is definitely not necessary, it's just kind of more of a decoration. So that's why I have that water bowl in there, so they don't need water. Don't give them deep water because they will drown. They can't swim very well. Alright, so I don't think I've left anything out. If you guys have any comments on how you care for your dart frogs, then please feel free to leave a comment below and we can discuss it. Alright guys, last week I asked you if you had any interesting stories on how you got a pet, and there were a few great comments, great stories, and I was really hard time deciding which one I wanted to share with you guys. So if you guys want to read all those comments, just click this right here, take you back to that video and read through those comments. There's some great stories on there. There's about 3 or 4 that I just really liked. And so, but the one I did choose, I'll read off to you guys here. Alright, this one's from Flesh Woundification, who said, "Praying the girl gets better. About 7 years ago, it was real late and pouring down rain, and this truck came speeding down my street and threw something out the passenger window, and it landed in the ditch, so I ran over and found a little 3 to 4 week old puppy. Wasn't even weaned yet. I picked him up, took him home, cleaned him up, and named him Duke. He's the best dog ever. Great video. Congrats on getting controls of the flies. Peace." Thanks for the comment. That was pretty touching. But this week I'm going to ask you guys, because my birthday is October 16th, so this is coming up Sunday, and I'm looking forward to doing some fun things for my birthday. So I'm going to ask you guys, what do you guys like to do for your birthday? Do you have any fun things that you like to do? Is there anything interesting that you do for your birthday? Leave your comment below. Try to leave a short comment and I'll feature it next Monday. Till then, you've been watching Classy Herps.